I thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, the issue that we are going to be debating over the next 2 weeks here in the United States is really a story about two gasoline stations. In July of 2008, the average price of gasoline in America was $4.11 a gallon. In January of 2015 in the United States of America, the price is $2.21 a gallon. Now, that's great for every driver across our country. That's great, actually, for Americans that buy home heating oil. They're saving a lot of money this winter, and the predictions are that it will continue throughout the rest of this year. That's great. However, it is not great for the oil companies. It is not great for the Canadians. It's not great for Wall Street. They're not happy with this incredible benefit that is now flowing to Americans all across our country who now have a gasoline station that has $2.21 on average as to what people will pay. So what does the Keystone XL pipeline really stand for? Well, it really stands for the Keystone Export Pipeline. That's right. What the Canadians want to do is to basically construct a straw through the United States of America, bring that straw down to Port Arthur, Texas, which is a tax-free export zone, and then export the oil out of the United States. Now, why would they want to do that? Because they advertise that it is all about North American energy independence. Well, there's a simple reason. That the price of oil in Canada right now for this tar sands oil is getting $13 less per barrel than it would get in the United States. But it is $17 less than if they can get it into ships and send it around the world. So that's the very simple economic strategy of the Canadians. Now, how do I know this? Because I asked the head of the pipeline for TransCanada in a hearing in the House of Representatives, would you accept an amendment to keep all of the oil here in the United States of America? And he said, no. By the way, I asked the same question of the head of the American Petroleum Institute. He said, no. So there's a lot of false advertising going on here. On the one hand, they say this is great for American energy independence. And on the other hand, when you say, well, let's keep the Keystone oil here in the United States and we'll have an amendment on the floor of the Senate that will accomplish that goal, they say, oh, no, absolutely opposed to that. And so that's why, logically, you have to reach the conclusion that their goal is to get the extra $17 per barrel that they will get if they can get it out and start selling it to China, start selling it to Latin America, start selling it to other parts of the world. That's the plan. No two ways about it. And by the way, that should be their plan. That should be their plan. That's what their responsibility is. It's to the shareholders of their companies. But what's the strategy for the American driver? Well, that's who we have a responsibility to make sure that they get the lowest possible prices. My goodness, they've been tipped upside down and had money shaked out of their pockets at gas stations all across our country for years. And finally, the day of deliverance has arrived, and they have $2.21 on average for the price, and now we're told the price of oil is too low. We've got to get it back up again. And of course, the best way of accomplishing that is to start exporting oil, because the less there is here, the less there is in North America, is the higher the price is going to be for American drivers, for American home heating oil consumers. Very simple plan. It's not about helping Americans at the pump. It's about pumping up the prices for new profits for the oil companies. Very simple. And if it's not, then just accept an amendment that keeps all the oil here. Simplest thing to do, and then your rhetoric matches up with the reality of what it is that's going to happen. The oil will stay here. They're not going to accept it. They've already made it very clear. So this is all part of a wish list that we're going to see out here on the Senate floor for the rest of this year. This is the big oil wish list of 2015. We start with the Keystone extra large export pipeline to take oil and send it out of the country. Then they want to lift the ban on the exportation of U.S. crude oil, which is now on the books, a ban on U.S. crude oil. This is Canadian oil. There are no laws against that. Then they want to begin exporting our natural gas, even as, again, consumers, businesses, natural gas vehicle firms are enjoying really record low prices and transforming the American manufacturing sector, but our relationship with natural gas here in America. And then to declare war on the Environmental Protection Agency and their authority to protect Americans against pollution, to make sure that the fuel economy standards of the vehicles which we drive continue to rise and rise, because honestly, if we want to tell OPEC that we're serious, if you want to keep them awake at night, then we keep the oil here, the price drops. We increase the fuel economy standards. We consume less oil. We have to import less oil. But that's not going to be the agenda that comes out here on the Senate floor from the majority. It's going to be just the opposite. And so that's why this first debate is actually, in a way, a preview of coming attractions, of what's going to be happening out here on the floor of the Senate throughout the course of this entire year. There's a kind of a Keystone Kabuki theater that is debuting here this afternoon on the Senate floor. Because the reality is that this bill will never become law. The president's going to veto this bill. There aren't enough votes here to override the veto. So what we have instead is just the preview of this entire agenda, notwithstanding the fact that they're not going to be supporting a national renewable electricity standard, dramatically increasing the energy efficiency laws in our country, making sure that the Canadians finally have to pay the taxes for the oil liability trust fund, which they're now exempt from. American oil companies have to in the event that there's an oil spill at a pipeline, but the Canadians don't have to. That's $2 billion a year, $2 billion over 10 years that American companies have to pay, but the Canadians don't, to make sure that something is done to protect against oil spills. Back when the Democrats took over the House and Senate in 2007, we worked together to put together a comprehensive energy bill. What was in it? Well, increasing dramatically the fuel economy standards of the vehicles in our country, having a new biofuels law to expand that production, making sure that energy efficiency in America was enhanced dramatically. And we worked on a bipartisan basis, and President Bush, a Republican, signed that bill because it was done in a bipartisan, all of the above approach. That's not what this is all about. This is not all of the above. This is oil above all. That's the strategy that the Keystone Pipeline embodies, shouts. It's not balanced. It's not where we should be as a country. So I say let's have an amendment on a bill, to the bill that keeps the oil here in the United States. Let's have this debate out here on the floor. Let's match up the rhetoric of the oil stays here for protection of the American economy and the American driver, with then the reality that we voted for that, to keep it here. Let's have that debate. I think it's important, because otherwise the Canadians the American Petroleum Institute continue to engage in false advertising about where this oil is going to be used. And so, from my perspective, this is the dirtiest oil in the world that's going to contribute mightily to an expansion of global warming. 2014 was the warmest year ever recorded in history, notwithstanding the fact that it snowed here in Washington, D.C. yesterday. The warmest year in history. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what I think the green generation out there knows as they look at this issue. What are we going to do to make sure that we avoid the catastrophic consequences of a dangerously warming planet? We have to engage in preventative care of this planet. There are no emergency rooms for planets. We have to engage in the preventative care that makes sure that we do not pass on this ever-increasing danger to future generations. We're going to get a chance here to debate it. The Keystone pipeline is a good example of how there is not, in fact, a balanced policy. So I ask for an amendment on the floor so that we can debate whether or not the oil goes through a pipeline from Canada, the dirtiest oil in the world, like a straw, potentially causing environmental catastrophes across our country, and then have it exported around the rest of the planet without the benefits flowing here.
The senator's time has expired.
And I think that this is the kind of debate that the American people expect the United States Senate to engage in, and I yield back the balance of my time.